What's up guys, welcome back to a new video. Today I'll be installing a multi-point roll cage into the Subaru GC8. I've always wondered how long it takes to install one of those, so today I'll be timing myself and doing it as fast as I possibly can. So let's find out how long it takes. Stay tuned. I bought this cage from Custom Cages in the UK. It comes with all the tubes you need. Everything is pre-bent, cut and notched, so that's all ready to be installed in the car. It also comes with a bunch of gussets and foot plates, everything you would need. And I additionally went ahead and bought a set of plates for my strut towers, so I've got fronts and rears. I think that's going to be a good addition to the rest of the kit. It also comes with a bunch of instructions and dimensions, so you know what you're doing. And a form to be filled out if you want the FIA certification for the cage. So the first step is always to get the car ready, but the most important aspect is to make sure that the car is perfectly flat and straight before welding that roll cage in, because once you're done, it will permanently take whatever shape the car was in at that point. So if the chassis is tweaked before you're welding the cage, it will remain tweaked for the rest of its life, and you do not want that. So what I'm doing is I've removed all the heavy components of the car, so the engine, transmission, the subframes, everything is out, and I've set it on 4 jack stands, pressing on where the subframes would actually be. The lift is actually not touching the car, it's just there for safety. So that way I can ensure that all these 4 points, key points in the car, are perfectly level, and that should set the entire frame straight. The next step is to remove everything that could get in the way or catch on fire. So I've completely gutted the car and cleaned it up nicely. And now I'm cleaning up the areas where the foot plates will be. So that's here, there, and the strut towers. So now I should be able to start with the installation of the cage. So we're almost ready to start the timer, but before we do, I want to see who of you guys gets the closest guess at how long it's going to take for me to install the cage. Knowing that this is a multi-point roll cage, so it's got pretty much every bar you can think of. It goes all the way from the rear strut towers to the front strut towers. It's pretty much complete, so it's not going to be a 2-hour job, but I want to see how long you guys think it's going to last. Please don't cheat, and I'm excited to see your guesses. Alright, so I got the main foot plates all welded up, the fronts right there, the center ones, and the rear strut towers. They don't look the prettiest, but the penetration is good, so they should be plenty strong. That took about 4 hours, but now we can finally start fitting the main hoop and the rest of the tubes. Alright, now that looks a lot more like it. I got all my tubes laid out exactly where they should be. Everything just fits perfectly right out of the box. So I didn't have to make any changes to the cage. And a really huge shout out to Custom Cages for making such amazing products. I am literally blown away by the quality of the tubes, all the dimensions. You can see right there, all the notching is just on point. So that made for a really easy installation, and it is now almost all in there. So I can start tacking the rest of the cage, removing some of the duct tape, and actually putting tack welds all over the cage. So I haven't messed with the front bars, which are still over there. That goes to the front strut towers. But I think for now, I'm just gonna tack this in and then do those later. Things are moving along nicely. I've got all the tubes stacked in place. The fitment is still perfect. The only bar I haven't done was the front dash bar, because I'm going to make it removable by adding FIA approved joints on either end. That way I can remove it to fit the AC box in the middle there. Otherwise it doesn't fit. So I've checked with custom cages and that's okay to do. Now the only tubes left are the front supports from the A-pillar to the strut towers. Those run through the firewall right there. So I need to cut a big hole to fit a tube basically from the A-pillar here all the way to the front strut tower right there. There is also a big plate that comes on top here and then a small one on the sides here for the tube. So that also needs to be welded in. So let's get back to it.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
The last pieces are finally in. You guys probably saw a lot of fire and smoke coming out of the strut towers. That's normal. It's just because I didn't clean the underside. So that stuff burned through as I welded. No big deal. Now the front tubes are a major pain in the because the firewall is made out of two sheets. You've got the front here and the back, and the tube needs to go through both. But at the same time, my A-pillar is already tacked in. So that tube needed to come at an angle and then be pushed in towards the A-pillar. So this hole needed to be a little bit bigger than it maybe should have. So no big deal there either. I can just patch it later. And I don't have a plasma cutter to make those holes. So what I used is a little trick. I took my welder, cranked up the settings all the way, or ridiculously far at least. And I just used it as a plasma cutter and just burned through, made a hole with my, my torch. That worked pretty well. It's not the cleanest, but it does work if you don't have a plasma cutter. Now, we're already about 15 hours into the cage, so it definitely took a while to get here, but at least we know every tube fits great and there won't be any more surprises, so I can go ahead and start welding the entire cage together. 21. That's how many hours it took to get this cage installed, but it's all done and I'm super happy with the result. I think it came out great. You can see some of my welds there. They're not the prettiest, but I'm not a professional welder by any means, so please don't be too harsh on me or my welds. I am still learning, but it's all done except for the dash beam. That thing I haven't done because I'm waiting for the joints to get here and do the final fitment with the dash and the hero core in the center. So that's going to be for later. Now, the front, I'm still going to clean up the edges and kind of mold everything together here, make it look a little bit nicer. The rest of the cage fits great. So again, huge shout out to Custom Cages for making these amazing cages at a decent price too. And I would say the trickiest area was definitely this front section with the 3 tubes. Getting through the firewall, that's definitely not something you want to mess up. And definitely plan for it if you're gonna do something like this on your car. Also on the GC, we're lucky because we have a big hole here that we can access through and weld the tubes in the back. So we can actually weld all the way around, which is required. Same with this big hole for the top there. So if you have a GC, you don't necessarily have to weld these tubes before putting the cage in, but on another car you might. So just be aware of that. Same with the roof. I had to cut out a little square in the back here to access this top weld. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're gonna do this. Now, other than that, it all went great. So I'm super happy with it. And that's all I have to say on this roll cage. Now, there is one more thing I wanna do before calling it a day, and that's stitch welding the interior. So I've cleaned up everything around the floor pans, the seat rails, and some of the back. So I'll be coming in with my welder and laying small beads of weld all the way around these panels, making sure they'll never come apart. It's finally all done and I did not film it. I feel like there's been enough time lapse as it is already, and that stuff is really not difficult to do. You can see all of my stitch welds every couple of inches all the way around the seat rail, the entire floor pan as well. And I did not burn through on any of those welds, so that went great. I'm really happy with it. I did not do the back nor the engine bay, but that's for later, I guess. Now, there's just one more thing I want to say about this cage before you guys call me out on it. Yes, it took me 21 hours to install it, but that is not the whole story because my shell was ready to go beforehand. Everything was cleaned, prepped, and ready to weld, and that takes a huge amount of time, which I did not include in the 21 hours. And I'm not trying to trick you guys or hide it from you, but I think that in order for this time to be fair and comparable with other cars, you have to take out the factors that are different on every car, and that's the preparation time. Because every car is different, every car will need a different amount of preparation. Mine was already halfway gutted before I started the cage, so my time wouldn't mean anything anyways. So I decided to take out the preparation time and just measure how long it takes me to fit the cage in there, make sure everything is in order, and actually weld it in place. And I think that's more relevant to you guys because if you're planning on doing this yourself, you probably know how long it'll take you to get the car prepped, but you don't know how long it takes to actually install all those tubes in there. So now you can kind of gauge the amount of time that you need and the effort that you need to put in. So I hope that's kind of helpful that way to you. Without further rambling, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.